All right, everyone, welcome back to the channel. For those that may be new here, my name is Darren Lasley, aka Coach Lasley. I am your life, career, and leadership coach. And this video, I'm going to take a few minutes to share with you my experience at the Aspire Tour. So if you haven't seen the ads, which I'm sure if you're here, you probably have, the Aspire Tour goes around a few different major cities. I'm doing this video in January of 2025. And so I believe at the end of last year and the early part of this year, they're in cities like Atlanta, Fort Lauderdale, Denver, Charlotte, and so forth. And so the Aspire Tour is really a like an exciting, motivational, inspirational type of experience. That's really what you'll see in the ads. You'll see a lot of excitement, a lot of energy. I'm sure you've seen some of the really big names that they're associated with, like you've got David Goggins, you've got Sharks from Shark Tank, you've got Kevin O'Leary, Damon John, people like that. You've got some big athletes in there as well. So just a huge, huge list of household names associated with the event. So really big, really impressive, really successful people, right? And so if you're like me, you saw the ads and they got your interest and you thought, oh, okay, it kind of looks cool. And then you saw them and you saw them and you saw them over and over again, right? And you started to go, man, this looks like a good time, but I'm not quite sure what it is. And so for me, I'm a detail oriented person, so I like information. And so as I started researching it, looking at the websites and looking around online, I wasn't finding a lot that really told me like what is it, right? Even their FAQs and things like that are a bit vague, and they just talk about having a great time and being inspired and being motivated and ready for change and ready for growth. So obviously as a coach, that definitely got my attention, and I said, maybe I'll check it out. And admittedly, I sat on it for a while, and then a few days before the event, I said, you know what, my schedule's open that day. Let me check it out so that I can see it for myself and can take the guesswork out of it. So I attended the event, and let me share with you now. I'll start with the highlights. I'll give you five things or a few things that I really enjoyed about the event. The first was that the location was really well set. It was a spacious conference center. Visually, it was set up nicely. They've got the Aspire Tour signs and banners. They've got some photo areas where you can take some good pictures for content. And then the area where the event is ultimately held, where the speakers are, was a really huge area, comfortable seating. It was spacious and all of that. So I thought the layout of the event overall was really good. Secondly, was that the energy was it was very energetic. It was really positive. The people that greeted you were positive, and everyone was engaging. If you had a question or needed help, so I think they did a good job with the staff bringing a positive energy to the space. The next thing I already mentioned is that there's a lot of big names associated with it. Now, obviously, every year and every city may have some different guests, right? So I'm sure they vary the lineup a little bit. But the event that I went to here in Atlanta, David Goggins was kind of the big name that you were expecting to see there. But they also had Dominique Wilkins, right? An Atlanta Hawk veteran and Hall of Famer, the human highlight reel, right? So I imagine at each city, they probably adapt their lineup a little bit depending on where they are. So shout out for just having a lot of really big names associated with the event. Next, the fourth thing I would say I enjoyed is that the speakers were really entertaining. They high energy, they presented really well, they kept you engaged for the most part. So I appreciated that. Again, these are experts on the stage, so of course you would expect great stage presence and engagement. And then the last thing I would say I like, number five, would be affordability. So unlike a lot of events, especially if you're in any professional associations like myself, a lot of events are expensive. Many of the events that I go to, $500 for a basic ticket is probably the cheapest thing that I see. A lot of events, I'm in the HR space or in the leadership or even in the career services space. It's not uncommon that, tickets for some of these events are, go up into the $2,000 or $3,000. Now, again, sometimes that's for more of the VIP experience, but even for just a base ticket, I don't think I have any other events lined up this year that are less than $500 for a ticket, right? But for the Aspire Tour, the starting tickets are like $100. Then they go up incrementally. I think they max out somewhere under $1,000 still, just depending on the type of experience you have. But even the first few levels of tickets, are only a few $100s, and they were 50% off, which they pretty much ran that promotion all the way up until the event. So I imagine that's probably pretty normal. So those are the things I enjoyed. Now, let me tell you the issues I had, or maybe the cons, if you will. First is that this event really centers around stage presenters. So this is not like your typical networking or professional association event where you're going to have breakout sessions and you're going to have speed networking or different activities like that where you're really engaging with all the other participants. This is more like going to a show, right? So the entire event is you're essentially sitting in the arena, if you will, or in the stage area, and you're watching the presenters deliver a presentation on whatever their topic is. One of the parts of the presentation was actually the host doing an interview. He sat down and did an interview on stage with Dominique Wilkins. And so I think you've probably seen some of the clips where you see two people sitting on stage, and that's kind of the interview portion of it. So that's pretty cool just to see that live. But again, it's just presenters. So if you're looking for an opportunity to network and connect with people and build a lot of relationships, not saying you can't do it, but this event isn't designed for that. So your opportunities to connect with people are going to be a bit more random, and you just kind of going up and finding people, but there's no structure to making those kind of interactions happen. So the entire event is watching the presenters on stage. And obviously there's some breaks in there as well. The second thing is that as much as I appreciated the quality of the speakers, because these are great stage people, the information tended to be very general, right? So it's not like I didn't find myself sitting there with my notebook on my phone or in my hand and taking a bunch of notes and going, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to walk away with some good nuggets of information, because you surely will, right? So if you're engaged, I'm sure they'll click a few things that you're like, okay, that's a good takeaway. But again, it wasn't really structured in such a way that like other events I've gone to where I walk away with at least a whole page or two of notes, because they're given really practical, actionable information that I could do this right now, or when I get up in the morning, like this is something I'm going to come back to and start reevaluating how I'm structuring my business or how I'm engaging clients and things like that. So again, you'll get some nuggets, but their presentation is a bit more general, a bit more engaging and exciting, but not so much about giving you a lot of practical, actionable takeaway information. The third issue or con that I have is that there is no agenda. And so you'll actually see on their website, if you look under the FAQ section, it will, I believe it said something like, we don't use an agenda because obviously things can change. And we also want to keep the excitement of the event. And some of that is in the unknown, right? And so that threw me off a little bit at first, again, because I'm an information guy. So I want to know like what's happening at what time and things like that. But I understand now why they probably don't give an agenda. One, because it does allow them some more flexibility. But two, the entire event is centered around the stage presentations. So there aren't breakout sessions and all these other activities that you would need to follow. And they probably don't want you to pick and choose who you're going to come in and listen to either, because again, they want everyone in there for the engagement. And I would say, well, I was there, you know, 85, probably 90% of the attendants were in that room when people were talking. So if you went to the restroom or stepped out to take a call, you would see people in the lobby, right? There was a good flow of people in the lobby, but the vast majority, close to 90% of people, at least probably I would say, were in the presentation space. And altogether, I think they said 2,000 people, but when I did my quick eye count based on the seats and things like that, it looked like easily 2,500 or maybe 3,000 people there. So a pretty good group. And again, keeping people isolated in that space really helps foster that. But again, there's just no agenda. So you don't know who's speaking at what time. So you just kind of have to be there to see who's coming up next. My fourth issue is that I think the food situation was really limited for that many people. So there was a cafeteria in the building, and not like a middle school cafeteria, but it's a conference center. So they had a cafeteria style space. It was very nice, but again, that was one place you could eat, and then they had two food trucks outside. Now that may not sound like a big deal, but again, if you're thinking upwards of 2,500 to 3,000 people, a cafe area and two food trucks, that's that's not a lot of space. And so I know I ended up choosing one of the food trucks. It was a Thai food truck. The food was good, but I ended up standing in that line for at least 45 minutes. And keep in mind, it's January. So even though it's Atlanta, it was cold. I don't remember what the temperature was, but it was cold. And so standing outside for 45 minutes waiting for a food truck was not exactly something that I had planned. But again, the lines were just long, even in the cafe on the inside, just really long lines because a few food options for a lot of people. And then the last thing I would say for me that I found to be one of the cons is that it was long, right? I think the event was scheduled from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., right? And maybe there was some registration in there. Admittedly, I got there a little bit later. Anybody familiar with Atlanta knows how crazy the traffic is down here. So I'm newer to Atlanta, but it took me almost 2 hours to get there. I'm on the kind of western suburbs of Atlanta. The event was kind of northeast of the city. And so getting there in the morning was not a pleasant 2 hours in the car to get there. But I got a lot of the essence of the event, and I was excited to see Dominique Wilkins because I was a really big fan of his as a kid, one of my favorite players. So kind of cool to see him on stage. And then obviously, David Goggins, the way I would describe it was like he was like the headliner, right? But my assumption is like with any headliner, they're going to be the last person that comes out to the stage. So you've got to stay if you want to see that final presentation or interview. And admittedly, I didn't. I really wanted to, but as it was getting closer to like 4 o'clock or so, and I'm going, all right, I'm going to have a 2 hour drive back home. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and transition out. But again, it's just a long day. And I think even the speakers, as much as I appreciated their stage presence, it just felt long sometimes, right? And again, keep in mind, this is just my perspective as somebody that, again, likes information. I like practical and pragmatic things and give me actionable takeaways. And I wasn't getting a lot of that. And so I think I got a little exhausted and said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and leave early. So those are my pros and my cons. So in conclusion, if you ask me, well, Darren, would you go again? Right. So the event comes back to Atlanta, next year. Would you go? And I would. I would. I think what's different for me now is now that I know what the event actually entails, I'll go with the right expectations. And I think for me overall, if you ask me to rate it on a scale of 1 to 5 stars, um, I'd probably give it a 2 or 3. But a lot of that is because I went into it with expectations different from what the event actually is, because they kind of keep it exciting, but secret in a way. So you really don't know what to expect. And so I think going into it, thinking that I'm going to have like networking. I'm going to get to meet with some people, maybe some breakout sessions, and they're going to have different topics and things they're going to share with us when we're there. So I went into it with that expectation, and because that isn't what it was, I'd probably, if I had to pick a star, because I don't like being unclear, I'd give it a 2 from that perspective. Now, if it comes back around to Atlanta again next year, I would go, but I already know what to expect. And so for me to give it a 2 star, but say that I would go back, hopefully shows you that it wasn't an issue with the event itself. It was more so just not knowing what it was. But this time I would go knowing that I'm going to be entertained. There's going to be some excitement. There's going to be guest speakers. But I'm not going with a bunch of business cards or thinking about, well, what kind of professionals are going to be there and who am I going to meet, and all the uncertainty gone. I'm like, okay, if my schedule's blocked out for that day, I would go again. I'd be more relaxed. I know that it's going to be, me sitting in a room for the most part, listening and watching different people. I probably would have brought some snacks with me, knowing that, hey, you may stand in line for 45 minutes. Now, if you're one of the first people to get to the food area at that break point in the middle, then you probably didn't wait quite that long. But after the rush started to kind of flow out a bit, then yeah, if I'd bring a few snacks with me, and I'd enjoy the time, and it was good overall. Even knowing what I know now, I think I would give it a 4 star, and that's you kind of go, well, why not give it 5? Well, again, I think it's just presentations, and so I think what would make the event a 5 star to me would be if they had just even 1 or 2 breakout opportunities, or something like that for people to engage a little bit more. But again, if you liked the list of people and the famous people that you've seen, if you know going into it that it's going to be a day full of just you watching presentations, like imagine going to a play, right? If you go to a play, you're not expecting to interact. You're just going there to watch, to be entertained. And so that's what this event was. It was more of that. It's entertaining, it's exciting. The presenters are funny, and they're engaging. And again, they've got great stage presence. So you're not going to be disappointed when you know what it is that you're going into. So those are my thoughts, guys. Anybody that's been to the Aspire Tour, if you have perspectives, I would love to hear your experience in the comments. What did you think about the event when it came to your city? And if you're somebody who's thinking about it, if you've got questions that you want to ask, that myself or anybody else that sees this video could comment on and share some perspective with you, please don't hesitate. Throw your thoughts and questions in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.